Okay, everyone. I'm incredibly excited to introduce our next presenter. Let's give a very warm welcome to Mat Zucker, the man who knows digital marketing like no other. Matt?
Hey, Miami. Where is my thing? Great. Good afternoon. Mat Zucker. I'm a partner at Profit, a growth consultancy. We work in marketing and brands. And especially at a technology conference, I think this is a really appropriate topic, is trying to reframe how we think things, that kind of restlessness that we need to stay alive and awake. So we're going to talk about digital channels and how best to use them. How many of you kind of consider yourself a marketer or in sales? Okay. How many of you own a business? Okay, great, two. So this is a quote I like from Will Dyer, who is an author, and it really stuck with me about how we look at the world and how sometimes just looking at the world differently can prompt new, different answers. So for me personally, I started off in advertising as a copywriter, making commercials and things like that too, and now I'm a consultant. So I've done one kind of shift already, looking at things differently. Personally, I spent 25 years in New York City, and recently I moved up to the Hudson Valley to farm country. So that's kind of a pivot as well. In fact, I have a podcast all about it called City It, which is on a digital channel. I worked at an agency called TBWA, who has an interesting approach about how to look at the world. It's called Disruption. And they wrote a book on it if you ever want to read it too. But the idea is, first you start with the convention of how things are, and then you try to blow that up and disrupt that, and you'll hopefully come out with a new answer on the other end. So applying that today, I thought we would talk about our biases. Because I think if you've been working in digital a long time, there's certain ways where you see things, and you might be stuck. You might be still using them to this day. And I think that's absolutely crazy. So let's start with a little history first. The web. Right? When the web started in around 1994 for commercial purposes, and this is kind of an early website from American Express, that was for the first time a brand could be like a publisher. A brand could start to generate content and just shove it out there, and hopefully the 10 people that were online then could discover it. And that was not wrong, it's still true. Then there was a little bit of a twist. Amex figured out for small businesses, hey, we could connect small businesses, and they created the forum. So this was now using the web as a sense of community and bringing people together. So that was a pivot at the time. That was kind of jarring for people to even think of the web that way. Another is email. Email, the classic workhorse. Now, I know it's not the sexiest channel, but it's the classic door opener, right? You send it to folks, and hopefully they respond. Online video took off, but it was a little different than regular television. So if you remember the Big Dove video, it was a really big brand statement and a kind of a brand act. So that was kind of a new way to think about video at the time too. Podcasting, during its first round, I created one of the earliest podcasts for AccuView, was almost like radio. I mean, that's what it felt like. The trick was we didn't know how to get people to respond to it. So we did this talk show with two teenage girls interviewing each other for AccuView, and we had to figure out how to get them to the coupon on the website. So they would go to the eye doctor and ask for AccuView contact lenses. So what did we do? We had them invite a boy from school on, and to see his picture of the cute guy, you had to go to the web to see the photo, and then you would get the photo, and it worked. So we turned podcasting into kind of a direct response medium. Social, if you remember when that early on, everyone remember Subservient Chicken? So basically social was just for screwing around. It's come a long way. Then there was that pivot where all of a sudden social, during, was it 2013 Super Bowl, that Oreo threw out during the blackout, that kind of live tweet. And then everyone started doing real-time marketing on social. That was kind of a big watershed. And apps, they were great, but that was not marketing's problem. So the trick, though, is, and especially if you work in technology, if you're an entrepreneur, is you need to be a little restless. And we think that there's these things called evolved enterprises. And an evolved enterprise never is restless. It never stops rethinking what's in front of it. So let's start talking about the channels, because if you do that differently, and you let go of your biases of what you think these channels can do, maybe you'll see things differently. So back to boring old workhorse email. Now, I think if you've been doing email a long time in marketing, you know there's all these rules, there's all these best practices. 2 links, buttons over here, call to action above and below the fold. There is rules on how to do email properly, and we all follow them. So then, of course, you want to start to find an example of someone that threw out the rule book, right? So this example from Peel Accessories, I really, really love because, look, they're already breaking the rules the second you open the email, right? I don't see call to action, right? It's forcing me to scroll down the page, right? And down the page. This is like breaking every rule, and I think it's absolutely fantastic, too. And finally, you get to the message, which is all about their cores are fantastically long, and please come buy them, too. So I love that example, too. Another example is rethinking from Charity Water, where their emails, instead of marketing you to the blog, they kind of treat the email almost like a blog. So that was kind of an interesting pivot. Remember the 404 error pages back on the web a long time ago? Those were all hilarious, right? People did a lot of fun things like this. I found this BuzzFeed example of doing that even in the email as well before your images load, because so much of email software now kind of asks you to download the images first. So they're using the dead space for a fun little message. I don't know, I know everyone's joining Spotify, but and it's at 100 million, and then I just downgraded to free. And what they did is they sent me, instead of saying the traditional "bye, are you sure?" they sent me a goodbye song list. So I thought that was really charming, right? So you can rethink even the opt-out, too. So out of home, which is becoming increasingly a digital channel, I wanted to touch on, because in some ways, and some numbers are pointing to, it's kind of replacing TV as the big hub of experience, right? It's really connecting the dots. It's doing fantastic things for digital channels when you include out of home in your mix too. So there's the classic way of being fun and out of home. This is one of our clients. Then you can be very contextual. You could kind of do something a little more environmental. This is for British Airways a couple of years ago. They timed outside London Heathrow. Every time a British Airways plane would take off, they would time the message for that too. So you could be more dynamic too. Pepsi did some 3D and virtual, I guess it's really augmented reality. That was pretty cool. And of course, out of home can even be a store. So that's kind of a pivot on a channel. It's not just kind of blaring messages at you. Let's talk about the demo for a second. I mean, Steve Jobs was the demo god, right? He just could do it like anyone else. And we've all probably, a lot of our products make animated demos, which are really effective at persuasion, too. The infomercial, which was a classic late-night advertising format, in some ways is making a big comeback because of online video. So this is an important product called Poo-Pourri. I don't know if you've used it or had guests over. I won't describe how to use it, but you can watch the infomercial. Is hilarious, and it's got millions and millions of views because of the way they brought this old format and reinvented it for digital, too. Of course, it can be virtual if you want to try on, whether you're using Warby Parker or this is for Fitbox. Trying on things. And then I wanted to show you something on this, a video where I thought, well, I'll just play it.
Doggos have tongues, and when a doggo licks its chops, it's a mlem. If it pokes it out, that's a blop, also called a blep. But some people think a blep is just for catos. Controversy. There are many more doggo species, like fire safety doggo, the French bulldoggo, moon, Shiba, and corn doggo. There's also many kinds of pupperinos, like the puggerino, shuberino, and ballerino. Doggos have many friends that aren't wolf-bork doggos, like the clip-clop-nay doggo, the cluck-cluck doggo, the stretchy-neck doggo with dots, and the sea doggo. P.S. A small sea doggo is just a sea pupper. But a doggo's best friend is a human's. Least best friends is a catto. Also called a Kate, but sometimes they're okay. But definitely beware of the danger noodle. Doggos do things, more things. Too many borks and doggo enters into maximum bork drive. Being a funny dum-dum is a derp. This is conehead doggo. Snoop boop. Doggos do the exercise. Squats, leg lifts, finish it off with a downward doggo. Visualize your doggos and anything else with Lucidchart.
So that is not your classic demo. I mean, I'm a dog lover, so there's like 6 or 7 of these out there. They all have hundreds of thousands of views. And I think, do you want to watch it again? No, but there's many of them. And I thought it was a great way to demonstrate the product with a little humor and using kind of a very simple device that costs like $1 to make. So I thought that was kind of fun. You can find them all online too. Okay, so let's talk about the web too. As much as this is the 24/7 canvas, a lot of people don't really update their sites that much. You kind of build it, you're grateful it's up, and you move on. Maybe make slight improvements over the years. So we did a kind of a study of this, and our new research just came out studying About Us pages, and what are people doing with them? Because many people have put up their About Us pages, and they haven't touched them since 2008. But others are starting to use them in interesting ways. So we studied more than 100 pages across different companies, comparing Fast Company 50 to Fortune 50 to see if the newcomers were more interesting than the oldcomers. And we found some interesting models for people to kind of steal from. And we have this info out there, but I'll just show you quickly too. We found 5 different approaches that people are taking. And none are right answer, but it's interesting to think about which one might be right for you, which is more honest for your company too. So for example, the first one is some companies like Patagonia are very principles-led. The first thing you see when you touch their About Us page is their belief system. They might do other stuff as well, but that's their starting point, and it's very them. And there's tons of examples out there too. And others are about their people. So Alfred is kind of a hospitality service too. So what they showcase is who they are, and there's lots of examples out there of that too. Gillette's also doing that. Some are about what they make. What they make is indicative of who they are and what they believe. So they kind of lead with product. So Alphabets is kind of a letter from Larry talking about what they make. And from that, you get a sense of who they are. Another is we found a fair amount that are pedigree-led, meaning their history. Maybe they do it in a modern way, but where they came from is who they are and how they want them to get to know you. Some are really about the stats and how good they are at what they do or what they make or their belief system. So SpaceX was an example of being performant. Conveniently, they're all 5 Ps. Salesforce feels very performance-led. And of course, some mix the archetypes up a little bit. But it's kind of interesting to make kind of a choice. Okay. The next one is around thought leadership, the classic white paper. Nothing's more exciting than entering your email address and downloading a white paper. Fortunately, folks are starting to do more interesting. CA Technologies actually turned their thought leadership into their advertising, meaning the thought leadership inspired how they were going to do their marketing. Other folks, like Goldman Sachs, this won some awards a couple years ago. You're seeing much more interactive and more dynamic and more exciting presentations of the thought leadership content. There's wonderful examples out there of those, too. Some are creating more tools. Some are kind of taking the format of a webinar and making it more of an Ask Me Anything, kind of a more experience. This next one's chat. So chat, I think we're all very used to, is chat is really great at customer service, right? But what else can it do? Because after all, chat's exploding as a platform, growing even faster than social, too. My colleague at Altimeter, Susan, has been studying the conversational business, and she's figured out a lot of use cases. So you can find this report online and find out a lot of exciting ways to use chat, too. So I found some other examples, too. One is, this is a company called Jumper, which just premiered this last week, where they have the technology that kind of sells tickets within the chat experience, too. Another, James Patterson, a very popular author, what he's been doing in chat is kind of doing storytelling. So you kind of get it's like you're having an experience with the characters and the book through the chatbot, too. And then my favorite was BBC, what they did to use chat as an awareness vehicle so you'd come watch their show about planet Earth. So what you do is, they found that happiness makes people happy and watch things, and so they wanted to use that kind of thought leadership about it too. So the first thing they asked you is, through the bot, do you like furry or feathery? So of course, I'm a dog person, so I chose furry. So every week I would get a little happiness message. So I'll show you mine. So the chatbot would deliver this to me. I'm so happy right now. Couldn't you just cry? This is a chatbot delivering this. Aww. take nothing else away, remember dogs and cute bears. All right, so every week you would get one of these, and you'd be encouraged to watch the show, and the ratings went through the roof too. So social's also kind of expanding too into more kinds of, other than the promotional promo thing, they're also being used for tweet chats and for discussion and more interesting formats too. Video, of course, is getting different too online, not just from the demos you saw, but kind of faster commercials. I was here! And we're out. And the last thing I want to just mention is apps, because I think I'm running out of time. I know, I'm good. Is that, apps are really classically a post-purchase experience, right? But could they do more? So I think digitally native companies have learned that that store is sacred space. And you can write the description of your product, and you can compete at the same level as the big boys, because in the store, in theory, everything's equal. Of course, then you gotta pay to be seen. But so you could start to use your description. And then they've also started to use notifications as a way to let you know about new features of a product. So it's kind of a nice little pivot that in some ways they're using the App Store for awareness and maybe even for company announcements. I mean, it's kind of an interesting, different way to think about the App Store as a channel. And then a company like Domtar, they were even using it as a product lab. So they were doing more of it as an R&D experiment for their app. So the thing I wanted to leave you with, and I can take any questions if you have a few minutes, is whatever your bias of how you think channels work, you're probably not wrong. It's just you need to kind of look at it a little differently, and it might unlock a little more creativity, a little better performance marketing, a little more interesting newsworthiness in what you do. So don't get too addicted to how you use your channels. Play around. Thank you. Any questions? I think I have like 5 minutes. No. If you want to hear the research on About Us, on the Content Excellence Show, it's a podcast series, we were interviewed about the research last week. So it's the second most recent episode. Yes?
I have a question, because in retail you have the omni-channel and the customer experience. So what is your take about the digital marketing with the other channels that are more physical?
Yeah, so what is my opinion about digital marketing versus omni-channel marketing?
Yeah, I mean, what is your take about not only having a good mix of channels,
Yeah.
but also the physical aspect of the marketing?
I mean, one thing we're preaching is that everything is really omni-channel, that digital marketing has made marketing more valuable. And the isolation digital marketing has felt is no longer that valuable. So digital marketing is really a part of marketing. So all your digital channels should be working together. A lot of our clients are shifting from measuring just the performance of individual channels, like how well the email is doing or how well the Facebook post is doing, to how well the program is doing. Because the channels can't work in isolation anymore, for the most part. So that's a shift that a lot of marketers are starting to make, and it's because of the belief in omnichannel marketing. Yes?
How do you measure the program as a whole without siloing KPIs by channel?
You really are cobbling together what good looks like. And so you're measuring, I mean, hopefully sales, or you find a KPI that can be a signal that the program's working. It might be informed by the individual metrics. So I guess you still look at them, but they have to add up to something you can report on. No one wants to walk into a boardroom anymore and talk about likes or even views. They want to talk about how well the program, so to speak, is doing. Yes?
Can you use some examples of how to integrate
With
with PR?
PR? Yeah, so, I mean, PR is one of the hardest. PRs, grew up measuring impressions, and how many was seen. Some of the ways we measure PR, especially for thought leadership strategy and things like that too, is obviously if you're using digital influencers, you can track sales or you can track references. But what you can also do is things like backlinks. If you create valuable content and people download it and they backlink it to you, that's probably a sign. If they call and ask you to speak at a conference, they probably like your thought leadership. So I think it's combining some of those digital behaviors that show performance. And I think PR's under a lot of pressure to show more performance. Good? All right. Thank you so much. I hope you have a great conference.